Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Petr Kosin. I'm beer production manager of Budvar, Czech Republic, the České Budějovice brewery. You probably know the brewery. We've got a stand here and we've got excellent beer there, so please come and taste our beer. And I was asked to prepare some presentation for this wonderful event. And the presentation was supposed to be about something about Czech lager, because Czech lager definitely is a phenomenon. You probably know it. And so I chose the topic decoction mashing. So the presentation is about, let's say, it's maybe kind of philosophical view on the decoction mashing. And it's supposed that everybody here in this room knows the basics, like what is it, the decoction mashing. So I hope everybody knows decoction mashing, like, you know, all this stuff that is in the textbooks, like that. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers. So I hope everybody knows, like, the basics of decoction mashing, like what it is, that we are taking just part of the mash. We are bringing the part to the temperatures, boiling the parts to boiling point, and then returning back. And we can do it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. You know it? Everybody knows? Perfect. So we are all on the same wave. So there always been the question, because not many brewers these days do it that complicated way as we do it in Czech Republic. Like we often have these discussions with brewers around the world, and they are asking, like, why the hell do you do it so complicated way when Germans can do it much simpler way, infusion, and you know, when you have a look at the amylases and the starch, like, why to do it that complicated way when the amylases and the starch can be digested in much simpler way just by infusion. And the answer is not simple, and the answer should be kind of here in the presentation. And if we wanted to have a simple answer, the simple answer would be because of the taste of the decoction. Taste of decoction. Yeah? It is something that I will many times come back in this presentation to the taste of decoction, and I hope I will be able to explain what it is, the taste of decoction, because it is something that usually isn't described in the literature, that there is something like taste of decoction. Yeah? It really is something that gives the beer taste. What you can read in the literature about decoction is that it gives the beer body fullness, like it makes a fuller beer, and it is true, and I hope I will be able to explain why it is. It gives some taste complexity, which is to me quite similar to the taste of body fullness. It gives taste layers. It is something that usually isn't used in the description of beer taste layers, meaning something that when you are drinking a beer, you have some taste expression or sensorial expression of beer that comes in time. It is something that is called taste layers. You usually, or sometimes it's discussed with hops in brewing, but it also can be used in the description of the beer body. How does the taste of beer express in time, after drinking, after a while, after a little longer while, yeah? And yeah, well, all these are parameters that are really difficult to be measured. And I will come back again to the question whether beer is really something that can be described by measurements, and whether everything in beer can be measured, or whether beer is still has some hidden mysteries, and whether beer is really, let's say, kind of mysterious drink. And I think it is. So, and why are we discussing this this decoction mashing with lagers? It's simple, you know. Compared to other beer categories, lagers is really or can be boring category. With other beer categories, you've got the wonderful wide possibilities of hop taste expression or yeast expression. But with lagers, it can be kind of boring because lager is about just what? Just pale malt, maybe some other malts, maybe some noble hops, but really nothing special that would give the beer really the taste of raw materials. Yeast as well. Lager yeast are usually kind of boring yeast because they ferment at low temperatures, hardly any taste. There can be some taste of the yeast, but not much. So it is important for lagers because lager can be boring category in terms of raw materials and yeast, and decoction machine is something that can give the beer or the lager the taste. So again, back to the taste of decoction. Yeah, so decoction machine is just one of the essentials of Czech lager, and it is usually connected to lower modified malt, and I will come back to it in the next slide, why low modified malt. But what are the others Czech lager essentials? It would be, with aroma hops, noble hops, decoction machine, as we always talk about, high evaporation boil, something that is really important for Czech lager, not to cook it under the pressure cooker, but to have some evaporation, because it is also something that gives Czech lager its taste. For sure, cold fermentation, because we don't want yeast to express their flavors too much. We want the brewing process, to be the main expression of the taste. And then long maturation, long lagering. That is something which is really important for lager, or for Czech lager. Yeah, sure.
The high evaporation means just a long boil or something else?
Oh, how we do it? We do it at atmospheric pressure, and we aim to like 6 to 8% at the hop-wort boiling. Yeah, so it's, but the atmospheric pressure is something that is quite essential. If you do it at higher pressure, not just the lower evaporation rate would be, let's say, against Czech lager drinkability, but also the development of the flavors at the higher temperatures. So open atmosphere, low temperature, high evaporation rate is something which is let's say key to Czech lager. Yeah, so. Maybe a little bit to the background of the history of Czech decoction, maybe something that you know from the literature. What are the main known benefits of Czech decoction? Well, obviously, this meshing regime enables all enzymes to work on better prepared substrate. Yeah, it is just or the only way how to let the endoamylases work prior to exoamylases. The only way how to do it is through the decoction machine. It is weird that the lower temperature is temperature optimum for the exoamylases, and the higher temperature is the temperature optimum for the endoamylases. When you would like to do the full digestion of starch, you would need to have the temperatures or the temperature optimums opposite. So this is the way how to get the maximum efficiency of the amylases through the decoction machine. And so originally it was the only way how to do some good yield out of lower modified malt. It's not the case for today's malts. It's that easy to have higher modified malts in the market. It wasn't there always, but now it's easy. And when you want to do the decoction machine, these times you need to take care of the modification rate of your malt, because with decoction machine you could easily get to, let's say, over attenuated beers. So it is something I will talk about a little bit later, how to work with the temperatures. But originally, the decoction machine was the biggest advantage was to be able to process lower modified malts, and to get high extract yield even from the low modified malts. Yeah, so it was kind of the history, and back to today, like why we still do the decoction again, back because of the taste of the decoction. And before we get, let's say, to the secret, what is it, the taste of the decoction, maybe let's talk a little bit about the more obvious reasons. By decoction mashing, you can easily prepare your mash or your wort to the desired degree of fermentation, and you also can kind of adjust color by this process. How is it with the fermentability and the target degree of fermentation? It's simply by playing with the temperatures. Yeah, you know that the lower saccharification temperature, the optimum, for the amylases. For example, in our brewery, when we are brewing lagers with different target of final attenuation, we are playing with the exact temperature of the lower saccharification after the return of the first mash. When we want to have the higher fermentability, like for example for our Budvar Original, which is 5 ABV beer, we are keeping this temperature at around 63 degrees centigrade, which is really the most optimum, which gives the full conversion rate for the starch. We also have other lagers in our portfolio that are not that deep fermented. We also have a lager with similar plateau that is only 4.6 ABV. So simply what we do in the brew house, we have a higher volume of the first mash, and after return of the first mash, we are fastly targeting like 68 degrees centigrade. So we are quite after or the optimum of the amylase, and it is something that is giving us the lower target fermentation rate, or the achievable the fermentation rate that we can achieve. And so by simply playing with the volume of the mash, we are playing with the activity of amylases, and we are targeting the fermentation degree. It is much easier or much better way how to get to target fermentability than playing with fermentation temperatures, because playing with fermentation temperatures, it would mean that we could result with beer that is not fully fermented, that would smell young, smell full of diacetyl, and wouldn't be able to achieve that matured flavor. Yeah, so it is a kind of way why decoction mashing is nice. Color, the same. We are not afraid of brewhouse oxidation. I know it's a kind of controversial topic in Germany. Because the classical German brewing school is usually against any air in the brew house and against any oxidation in the brew house. To the classical Czech school, we are not that much against it, because we know that if there is a compound in beer that can be oxidized, we feel that it's better to have it oxidized before fermentation then have it not oxidized before fermentation, because fermentation kind of heals the beer, gets the flavor repaired. Oxidation in the brew house brings a lot of flavors, like the flavors from the similar to the cooking flavors. And in terms of the flavor stability, we don't have the experience that, for example, oxidation in the decoction or in the mashing steps would be anyhow against the flavor stability, simply because the oxidized flavors gets repaired during fermentation, and all these theories that you shouldn't oxidize in the brew house, I don't know how much deep in you are in the brewing science, but you probably have heard about the electron spin resonance, the ESR method. That is the basics for prohibiting oxidation in the brew house. And basically what this method does, it takes a sample of beer, and then it fills the sample of beer with oxygen, and then it measures the time that the beer has a capacity of preventing oxygen level to increase. And the theory is that the higher the ESR capacity or the antioxidant capacity is, it means that the higher of the oxygen the beer can consume, the time is longer during this test, the better for the beer flavor stability. Well, I kind of don't feel the synergy between the real beer quality because the more oxygen the beer can consume, to me the beer doesn't taste better. Yeah? It's like when you have an extreme conditions theory applied to this method. For example, if you have a beer and water in 2 glasses, and for example, for sure in this test, water would be less flavor stable. But have you ever tasted oxidized water, like beer destroyed by oxidation? Me as well not. Yes, so I wouldn't take this theory behind the ESR as relevant to deciding whether to have oxidation in a brew house or not. And to our experience, to have some slight oxidation in a brew house can be really beneficial because it is the most natural way how to adjust color of the beer. Yeah. When you let some oxidation during the transfer of the mash, during the several step decoction mashing, you easily can get like 1 or 2 EBC units of color to your beer without the need to using some caramel malts in your grist. And it is much better way how to have, let's say, nice drinkable, fluent tasting beer, because caramel malt is something that in lager is to me always kind of disturbing. Yeah, so these would be some, let's say, few reasons why the decoction is good. And back to the basic question, like, yeah?
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that it's really interesting. So how is it solved technologically at Budvar when you do the decoction transfers? Is it in the open air or?
Yeah. We have the possibilities to pump the mash from the bottom or from the top. Mm-hmm. And we are choosing this way according to the malt color. And if we want to, let's say, we know that maltsters were not able to prepare malt with a higher color specification. We use the top ways, and when we are processing batches of malt with higher color, we use the bottom ways. Yes, and it's the same for the lautering ways as well. Not just for the mashing, but for the lautering, we can use open and closed lautering ways. Exactly according to this.
So the main determinant is the color of the malt and the finished product.
Yeah, it's one of the parameters. Wow. Yeah, and as we are single malt beer, just pale malt, and we have, let's say, quite nice deep golden color. This is where we get the color. Yeah, in the brew house. Okay, so back to the original question, like, what is the taste of the decoction? When we were thinking about it, like, what is it, the taste of the decoction? We came to, let's say, like 3 theories that are worth of discussing. The first part would be the taste of tannins. You know, when you are boiling the mash and you are really boiling the whole grains, you definitely get some tannins out of the grain. And tannins, it is something, let's say, what we as brewers really don't appreciate that much as I think we should, because the taste of tannins is something what makes up for the overall taste of beer. And for example, our colleagues from wine industry, they are using the advantage of tannins pretty much. And when you have a look at the catalog of tannins that are being used as aids in wine industry, you can see that tannins have a lot of a really wide range of flavors that can be added to the wine, and it's the same for the beer. For example, to me, the most interesting was that there is even, like, let's say, tannin compounds that would add some, let's say, kind of sweet, or green is quite obvious, but velvety and fruity and floral and spicy and woody. A lot of taste is there hidden just by boiling the grain, and liberating more of the tannins. So one really interesting and not that much discussed part of why we do it. The second, which is quite obvious, would be taste of compounds that are being just developed by boiling sugars and sugars and proteins. All these bread crust-like flavors, that light color caramel flavors, which are really different from caramels that would be developed in the malter house. Yeah. It's not the same flavor as you would get with caramel malt. It is a little bit different caramel flavor, but it is kind of that melanoidins flavor. And as we were discussing with the color, these reactions are quite safe in terms of oxidation for us. And then to us, what is the most interesting part, and back to the taste layers of decoction meshing, it is the taste of every water-insoluble flavor active compound in beer. And it is something that we will discuss more in detail, like what is it, the taste of insoluble flavor compounds in beer. But maybe before we discuss it, just one more philosophical turn, whether beer can be described by measurable parameters. Whether you think that when you measure parameters of beer, it will give you information about the beer taste. Well, for us, never. It's like you cannot exclude sensory analysis from the thinking of beer, because it's quite easy to have beer with identical measurable parameters that would taste really different. And there are many examples on this, that really beer cannot be described in brewing laboratory, and I will tell you why on the next slide. And the reason, before I discuss it, is because there are like thousands of chemical substances in beer, and you never can measure them all, and you definitely cannot measure how these chemical substances would influence the taste that you are getting from the glass. And it is because many of these beer components are not water soluble. You know, when you look in the literature, there are articles saying that beer consists of like from, I don't know, 3,000 to maybe 8,000 chemical individuals, that chemical components that make up for the beer flavor. And when you have a look, majority of these components are not water soluble. You know, beer is made of water you drink, and how it comes that you've got thousands of chemical substances that make up for the flavor, and how, let's say, how would you control the beer quality just by measuring when you cannot measure them all, and you cannot measure their expressions when they are not water soluble. So it is one of the let's say hidden mysteries of beer that we feel that is there, and it is the question of beer. We call it beer inner surface. Yeah? And what is it? The beer inner surface. From the physical chemical point of view, beer is a really interesting drink. Beer is, let's say, it can be true solution of anything that can be water soluble, but then beer is definitely a solution of gas. You know, you've got CO2, you've got nitrogen, that is definitely influencing the beer taste. But then what is the most important and not that known, beer is colloidal solution. You know, even if beer is filtered, it's always colloidal solution. It means that it's got insoluble particles inside, and let's say no clear beer is really clear. Even when you have the deepest filtered beer in the glass, and when you take a light, for example, LED light of a mobile phone, and have a look at the beer, you always see that it's not clear. It's always colloidal. There are always colloids inside the beer. And try it, like with any beer you have, try it to have a look in the beer, that it's not clear. It's always colloidal solution. And it is really important because it is something that makes up for the flavor of the beer. All the colloids that are there hidden in the beer, these are the particles that make up for the surface where all these flavor compounds are being bound by just physical bonding, just being physically bound to the particles of the colloidal solution. And so the surface, the total inner surface of the beer is really important for you to bring the flavor to the glass. And so there is a question, how can you control the total surface of the beer? And in fact, we don't know how large is the surface. Like it can be like square kilometers per glass of the total surface of all these colloids. And so where do these colloids come from? We know that they come from or they can also come from the decoction meshing that we do with our lager. As I said in the beginning, decoction is said to give layer of taste. It is said it gives beer fullness. It is really something that can be easily explained by the influence to the inner surface of the beer. So during the boiling of the grain, you really destroy all these cells of the grain, and you make up or you create the particles that are being there in the beer. And in the next steps of beer production, these particles would make up for the total inner surface that is there. So the inner surface is being done by the decoction meshing, by the boiling of the mesh. It's not just the cell wall that make up for the particles, but also the protein that went through some denaturation. There can be some condensation of polyphenols as well during all these decoction meshing steps. There can be many reactions between proteins and polysaccharides that would make complexes that would be there as the inner surface. And for example, we don't have scientific proof for this by measurement of the inner surface, because definitely it's something that is really difficult to be measured. But we have an observation that you also might have, and it is the observation how beer behaves after, for example, pasteurization. I don't know if you know or you have the same experience as we do. When you have a bottle that goes through tunnel pasteurization, and you take the bottle right after pasteurization, the beer, it kind of tastes empty. It loses some of its taste, and then when you let the bottle rest for a few days, the beer gets back to the condition, to its original condition, and gets the taste. And well, it definitely there is some change after pasteurization. When you taste the beer directly after pasteurization, after a few days, the beer after pasteurization, it kind of tastes broken, empty, and then the taste gets back. It is something that which you can easily do as a proof of this theory, and definitely we have this experience, and this is an easy explanation. Why is that? Yeah. So it was, let's say, the taste of the decoction, and here is a slide I think that we all discussed on further slides, that what is definitely good about decoction, it enables you to exactly and precisely control the temperature of your amylases for their activity. It's much easier to have volume measurement of the mesh, and you've got the 100 degrees mesh before you return it. It's much easier to control the temperature by controlling the volume than just by controlling by the heating, because by controlling with heating you always get some delays with the heat transfer. So by decoction it is much easier to control the exact temperature and by the volume of mesh. And we discussed the aeration already. So we are getting to the end of presentation, and just final thought, is decoction meshing good just for lagers? To our experience now, we have quite good experience with other beer categories that we were deciding whether to use infusion or decoction meshing. This one on the left, it was with beer, with decoction, excellent beer, recommend. This one was English Pale Ale. Also, we had trials doing infusion versus decoction meshings, and for New England IPA decoction, definitely it was beer that had so many taste layers and so full taste, even with low plateau and low gravity, that I would recommend as well. So yeah, and that was it for the taste of decoction. So I'm open for discussion. Questions? We've got a few minutes. Yeah?
It sounds like you said the taste of decoction comes from the colloids that are generated. Is that something you can measure? Like, can you measure the amount of colloids that are in the beer, and that can give you an indication?
Well, it is something, I had similar presentation in the EBC Brewing Science group last year, and the name of the presentation was like, what else we as brewers feel like we don't know about beer and we would like to know about beer, and it was kind of task to the beer scientists to come with some measurements to prove this. We had some interesting discussions, so hopefully beer scientists will also, let's say, open this topic of beer inner surface, because it was not described in literature, and I feel like, or according to our experience, it is definitely something worth exploring. Yeah. Beer has a lot of hidden mysteries, not just this one, but this is one of the most interesting.
Cool, thanks.
Regarding fermentation and color and beer taste, is there an influence of how long you are cooking the boil? You're boiling the mash. So if you're boiling the mash, for example, 5 minutes or, for example, 20 minutes.
Yeah, definitely there will be. Like it is always a question whether you were comparing one mesh versus two mesh system, the length of the boiling. Definitely something, let's say, that is there in between infusion and full free mesh decoction, each mesh 20 minutes. You've got all the variety in between that you can play with, and to our experience, like any minute counts. Yeah, like we've got 20 minutes boiling of mesh. We in Budvar we do two-step decoction. Each mesh is being boiled for 20 minutes, really intensive boiling. We even calculate the evaporation rate of the mesh to the total evaporation rate of our beer, because we feel it's a really important step where to do the boiling.
So to a certain point, the longer the better for...
Kind of. It depends what you want from the beer. And if you want more taste of the decoction, you definitely should boil. Yeah. Yeah.
When you talked about the oxidation, you do it in the brew house on purpose for the color and components, but like then you have the fermentation to repair the flavor. Mm-hmm. And does it mean when you measure later that kind of all the components which could oxidize are already saturated and don't oxidize anymore? So
well,
it's more stable like this?
Yeah, it's a again not that simple answer, and it was also one of the topics we were discussing in the brewing science group. Well, whether there is measurable safe amount of oxidation in the brew house, if we would like to measure this observation, like let's say how to do it, and yeah, to our experience, this oxidation, like with the top piping during mesh transfer and also during lautering, it never decreased the sensorial stability of our beer. But on the other side, we wouldn't say that the beer was more stable. Yeah, so it was not less stable, not more stable. It was like no influence. Yeah. But definitely, for example, oxygen after hopping would be not good, because oxidized hop flavor isn't something that yeast don't repair. Yeah. So just before hop addition. Yeah. So yeah.
You said that you, where you use a top, higher pipe for and a lower pipe for the decoction. Does it mean you decide by your parameters, like the color, which part of the mesh you pump, like the thicker part or the thinner part?
Well, during the mesh transfer, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, it is something I didn't mention, good point. Before the mesh transfer, we usually turn off the agitation. So we are pumping the thicker part, yeah, for the, to get more mold to the meshing step, yeah.
Yes, but I think my, no, got it wrong. But if you have two pipes and it sounded like you can decide whether you pump from the top.
No, we always pump from the bottom.
Okay.
And it's just the return to the next vessel. The return is from the top or from the bottom. Oh,
okay.
Okay.
That's my
Yeah. But always pump from the bottom. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So okay. Well, I will be around if you have other questions later. And thank you.
Thank you.